Yeah, so great weeks at South Carolina. Played extremely well, and I think I'm most proud of their performance on Sunday. We all know we've been 0-7 on Sundays in game threes. But it just to battle out that 10 inning game and not give in and just really compete was extremely impressive for me to see. Really happy with our pitching performances and what we're getting out. And the pitcher's job is just to keep the game close and give us an opportunity to be able to try to manufacture runs. But just really happy to see that Kara Daly and Abby Hay were able to capitalize, and especially Kara. We all know that she's a huge offensive force, and her being able to capitalize on that home run hopefully can carry some momentum into this postseason run. But had a great practice today. We were the first on the field at Auburn. High intensity, you only get 35 minutes on the infield. So we got to be pretty efficient in getting our work done. And then we got some swings in at another facility. So really looking forward to this tournament.
And we'll open it up for questions.
Larissa, when you talk about going into this tournament, obviously the focus is on the SEC tournament right now, but what kind of opportunity does this present when you look ahead to, obviously the NCAA and the selection show coming up in a little under a week now?
With going into our season, we had different layers of goals. Our ultimate goal is to host regionals and host super regionals back in our stadium. But it's everything that leads up to give you the opportunity to be able to do so. So it's kind of different layers. And one of the layers is to make a deep run into this postseason. I think we did extremely well in our seeding. It's crazy when I look at how close the seeding is and how we were a game or two away from being in the top four. And it's pretty remarkable, especially when our preseason poll and where we started and where we were picked and really what the expectations were for everyone on the outside, not the expectations within us, and where we finished. And, I was just going through some of our top 10 records, and we're 6-7 in the top 10. We have the second most top 10 wins out of the entire conference, and that's extremely impressive for us to be able to do what we've done. And it's just continue to win games. Like we're looking at one game at a time, and we'll watch the game tonight to see who we're going to face tomorrow. And we're just going to focus on that one game and play as many games as we possibly can. We absolutely love this team. We love being together. And it's like, let's play as long as we can and continue to ride this wave.
Yeah, Brandon.
So, Coach, obviously a post yesterday came out that the most neutral and road wins of any team in the nation for Mizzou. Just how is that, do you think, going to prepare you kind of going forward as you obviously go into this SEC tournament and then the postseason?
And that's pretty cool. And it definitely feels that we probably played the most games on the road than any other team in the country. Extremely impressive. And I think we only have 2 losses from the top 25 on. I'm just extremely proud. I'm proud of the effort that they give in. They compete all the time. They battle and they do everything that they're capable of doing. And we're on the road this week. But the game doesn't care. Like it's going to be an amazing atmosphere and an environment. Unbelievable competition. I think what's really interesting is our first game is going to be against someone that we haven't played against. So we have to do a lot of preparation. And, there's familiarity only because they're in our conference, but not familiarity this year. So we got to make sure that we take care of what we need to do tonight after we know who we're playing. But it's what you do, what you play for. It's really what you set yourself up to do. And we turn the page on a regular season, and now it's a whole new season and everyone has an opportunity. So it doesn't matter where we are right now. It's really matter what we do tomorrow.
Hey, Larissa, where does that comfort level come from on the road? How does this team go about its business that makes them that successful?
It's creating routines. It's our program. It's being disciplined, and we're disciplined in every single aspect, from our home game routine to how we practice, to how we line up equipment, to our rules, and to what we can do on the road. We have curfew. We have bed checks. We're very, very structured and very disciplined. So we have a really, really good routine. Traveling with our strength coach and what he does in the preparation before we play and watching video. It's a very, very oiled machine that we run here. And when you get in that comfort zone of playing on the road, and we start our first 4 weeks of our season on the road. So you get in a real good away from home routine. That sometimes when you're playing home, it's a little bit different, a little different distractions, but getting back into a comfort zone that we can control our environment, that's the way it is when we're on the road.
Coach, this past weekend, South Carolina left a lot of runners on base, and a lot of that had to do with your all's pitching in jam situations. As you're headed into more neutral sites and more high pressure situations, what did you like most about your pitcher's ability to get out of those jams this weekend in a road environment?
You know, and it was almost that our defense let us down in some aspects. We made a lot of very uncharacteristic errors. But what I loved is that our pitching stepped up. Like it didn't matter because we weren't getting hit hard. And when an opponent's not hitting our pitching hard, they have a lot more confidence in being able to get batters out. And that's how I felt. Like I could leave people in. I mean, I love Taylor Pennellen. It's the most she's thrown all season long, her whole career, because she wasn't getting hit hard. So I can live and die with those situations when our pitchers are being extremely competitive.
Larissa, when you look at Lauren Krings, obviously this season trying to find the role that fits her best, and you look where she is at right now going into postseason, what do you like about where she's at right now and everything that she's done this year?
She's getting better every single day. I love the fact that she's fresh and she's not overworked and she doesn't have high number of innings where it's telling me that she's had too much of a workload and we're just trying to maintain her. Like she is still getting strong. And a couple of weeks ago, she and I had a conversation on what does she need to do in her pitching repertoire to be more competitive. And the question I asked her is, what do you need to do to win? And she came back with me on she wants to mix more. She wants to throw different speeds. She wants to throw different pitches. And it was like, okay, well, let's make another pitch your second best pitch so your scouting report changes. And that's the key. If the scouting report against Lauren Kring changes, then teams don't know what to prepare for. And that's really our whole goal going forward, where it's almost like it's another different Lauren Krings than who they saw earlier on in the year.
Larissa, you mentioned Abby and Kara a little bit ago, and that's a Jeff City kid and a Columbia kid. That's a lot of the people you look up in the stands and you see players just like them a few years ago. How much fun are they having? How much fun are you having with those two this year?
And Ben, I'm not exaggerating and I'm being brutally honest. And if I didn't feel this way, I wouldn't say it. This is the most fun I've ever had coaching a team in my entire 25-year career. It's remarkable. One, because I completely trust the players. I love them to death. And a lot of it comes from the whole recruiting base that I know their families. Their families are so invested. They've been coming to camp since I first got on campus. And there's such a belief system between the two of us that I can just sit back. I don't have to try to motivate. I don't have to entice them and give them rewards. It's like they want to be successful. They trust one another. They respect one another. This is what we're going to do today. And they buy in. And it just makes me so much more relaxed to be able to sit back and know I'm getting the best out of them every single time.
Larissa, I know you talked about one game at a time, but you're open to what the first goal is. Do you feel like going into this tournament, you've already done enough to feel secure that you'll host a regional? Or
I would hope so, but I'm not in that room. I don't even try to pretend to put an NCAA cap on. I stay in my lane. I just want to give them as much information so when they look at it on paper, they believe that we're a top 16, if not a top 18. And the more I dive into it, the more it's a no-brainer for me. I mean, when I look at our strength of schedule, what we've done, our top 10 wins, it's a no-brainer, but I'm not in that room to be able to fight for Mizzou. So all we can do is fight on the field and give ourselves the best opportunity to be in the consideration.
Larissa, you mentioned this season obviously being your most fun. What is the biggest difference that you've seen from this season to last season and how you were able to go from a last place finish in the SEC to a 5th place finish?
It's trust and buy-in. It's the belief in your coaches and your preparation. And when teams aren't successful, then they start to second guess what they're doing. And then they listen to the outsiders. It's the Teddy Roosevelt speech. Like the people in the arena are the ones that count, and the people in the arena are the ones that matter. And when you start to second guess and you don't trust your preparation, then you're starting to learn all the outsiders, and it all comes from losing. This team has bought in from the very beginning. They believe in what they were told, and And I've said this many times, and I'll say it to the end of the year, and I'll say it 10 years from now when I'm reflecting back on this season. Julia Crenshaw said it in our first meeting. There's a reason why Jenna Laird is as good as Jenna is. It's because she has trusted her coaches, her preparation from day one. So why wouldn't we want to be like Jenna? So let's follow her. Let's follow Alex Honnold. And they've believed in everything that they've done and been told and how to train. So why not follow their lead? And that's really what this team has done. So it allows me not to try to convince them on this is the right thing to do, on, you know what, the proof is in the pudding. These are the players that have been successful, so to continue to buy into that.
Larissa, how essential, you touch on Jenna Laird and Alex Honnold. How essential has their experience been, especially players that have seen, you guys reach some heights in the NCAA tournament there? How essential has their leadership been?
I mean, it's so huge. It's really cool. And like when we went to Auburn today and you can hear them talk about, what it's like and the crowd and the atmosphere. But when they talk about their favorite experiences, it's playing in our home stadium with those crowds and that electric atmosphere. Nothing takes the place of experience. So I know that our freshmen are going to come out tomorrow and they're going to probably have some little pregame jitters, but it's just reiterating that the game doesn't care. It doesn't care we're in the SEC tournament. It doesn't care what our record is. It's a ground ball, it's a pitch, and we just have to keep it that simple. But again, I want them to enjoy the moment. I want them to sit back and really enjoy being with one another, have fun doing it. And if I see that they're uptight, then we're going to have to do something to get it a little bit more lively in the dugout.
Obviously,
How does, go ahead, man.
all right. Obviously, you don't know your opponent as of now, but kind of what are your expectations going into this tournament? And what are you kind of hoping to obviously get out of it?
I mean, everyone's goal is to win. Like you don't play at this level to not win. Holding up that trophy would be an experience that Mizzou would love. Our program would love. It would be a first SEC championship. So we're going out to try to win a title. Like that's what we're trying to do. And at the same time, we're building our resume. Every game in this conference is everybody can win it. Every single team in this conference could win the championship. There's no easy game. So we know we have to compete. I can't look forward. I have to put the best team on the field tomorrow, and we got to compete to win tomorrow. And then after that game, then we got to focus on that next game. But it's not like a regional where you're in double elimination. Like I don't have to prepare for a loser's bracket. I just have to prepare to win tomorrow.
That kind of ties into what I was going to ask. How does your approach change from regular season to now every game is maybe not the last game, but potentially could put you in a different situation than just losing on a Friday or a Saturday could?
And it really started this past Sunday, Gabe. Sunday was a challenge for me as a head coach, as a manager, because I wanted to leave Krings in, but I wanted Krings not to be, it was hot and it was exhausting, and I did not want her to be too tired for Wednesday's game. And potentially Thursday. Like it's a midweek game that we haven't had to do in a few weeks. So that was the reasoning for pulling her out on Sunday, was to really keep her fresh and being able to get a lot more pitchers work preparing for this postseason run. And it's almost like Susie Allstaff is available every single game, that I don't need to keep someone and keep the bullpen fresh, because it is only one game a day. I don't have to worry about a doubleheader, and that's really the difference in the managing from that aspect.
Coach, you talk about the rotation and how you're going to manage your pitchers. Have you given any thought about potential starters as we go along to the tournament, especially for tomorrow?
I always am. I've been watching a lot of film on Kentucky and Ole Miss. I know who is a better matchup for both, but then you come into the same thing on chemistry. Like chemistry is so important with a team. And, I've played around with Sierra Harrison being the Friday starter and Krings. I played around with McCann being a starter and a middle reliever. So, allowing the team to be comfortable is probably more important than just straight on paper who's the better matchup. I manage a lot based on instinct, and there's times that I go to bed thinking one thing and I wake up in the morning or the middle of the night and my gut is telling me something else. So yes, I think about it. No, I'm not going to give you an answer.
Offense has kind of been a topic of conversation throughout these past few weeks, especially. Kind of how do you assess the offensive performance from this past weekend, and what are the keys going into the SEC tournament?
I see us getting better. I do see us having better at bats and making better adjustments, getting on time. You know, a month ago, all I talked about was the changeup and how the changeup was killing us, and we'd be much more competitive with off speed and not being fooled by it. And I think the more at bats we have, the more comfortable we're going to get, the more quality at bats we're going to have. I have complete faith in them, and I think what's the most impressive is we just find a way to win. Like there isn't any one player that we're saying they have to get the job done. Like, we hope that this person's up with the game on the line. We don't have that because all the way through the entire lineup, everyone has an opportunity to be able to win it and everyone's ready to win it. And I think that's what's the most impressive thing about this team is that they compete in all those little battles. And if I was to look at game 3 against South Carolina on Sunday, it all started with Langer walking, leadoff walk. Like that at bat is probably the most important at bat in getting her on base to give us an opportunity. So it's those little battles, and it doesn't come down to just one hitter hitting the ball hard or hitting a home run.
Softball is kind of unique in the SEC from basketball and football and baseball, where the SEC tournament moves around to the campus sites. Do you like that? Do the players like that? What makes that interesting or fun?
You know, and I'm 50-50. I think looking at what a neutral site would be able to provide, I think it could be bigger and better. Because I think then the conference would be able to spend a lot more time building up the venue the same way it would be in baseball. And I think that adds a lot to the student athlete experience. But it's really neat in that college atmosphere with the crowds and having the home team there and the advertising that school and that university can do. I think it adds a different layer. So I'm completely torn 50-50. You know, we don't have Auburn right now in our path, but it makes it a really unique experience for them when they're the host school in their own dugout and their comfort. So I look forward to that when Mizzou's hosting in 2028.
So going back to this weekend, what did you see with Cece on Saturday that kind of kept you from putting her in on Sunday? Because it kind of seemed like she was unavailable. And then what do you want to see from her going forward in the SEC tournament?
Yeah, Saturday I saw that she wasn't as sharp. Her ball wasn't moving as much, and I definitely attribute it to the humidity in the air. It was a very, very heavy air. The ball wasn't rising as much as it was. So that made things a lot different for her. And so I was able to bring her out. So because we had people in the bullpen, she was available on Sunday. She was ready to go on Sunday. She was warming up, but she's not a good complement to Krings to be able to follow because they're too similar.
Any last questions for Coach?
Yeah, Larissa, just kind of what's your big picture? We talked a little bit about your approach day in, day out. What's your big picture message to your group as you go into the postseason about how to handle you know, the changes from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 that you see in the conference tournament and the regional?
A lot of emphasis right now on recovery. That it's going to be a grind, that you're going to be mentally and physically exhausted, that we have to really pay attention to our recovery. The heat is a little bit different than what we're experiencing in Missouri. So paying attention to that, doing a lot more in terms of ice baths and some electrolytes. But then the message just to keep their emotions in control is, again, the game doesn't care. Like, we're going to go out and we're going to play the same softball that we've been playing all year long. There isn't anything that anybody can do that you're not prepared for. It's just another game. So that way they don't get too high and they don't get too low. Because if they're so emotionally drained after every single game, it's really hard to be able to get that for 4 days in a row. And that's some of the experiences that we've had in these postseason runs before. I can tell you in 2022, when we had those 4 days, when we got to that championship game, like physically we were okay. Emotionally, we were exhausted. And it just comes from that emotional letdown after you're so pumped up for 3 games in a row. How do you get yourself back to that point? So it's paying attention to some of those and allowing them to be able to decompress for a little bit.
Larissa, I did have one more thing. Obviously, we talked about it. It's not for sure that you'll host a regional, but a serious opportunity to possibly host a 3rd regional in 4 years. What has kind of made it's so consistent for Mizzou softball? And what's kind of the key ingredient that you've seen that's allowed for that consistency and that success over a longer period of time?
You know, something I learned here in particular, you're going to get your RPI against your conference opponents because we are the #1 conference in the country. It's your non-conference schedule and it's winning those non-conference games and having one of the highest winning percentages in non-conference to give us an opportunity to keep that RPI, because when you're playing in the SEC, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. So your RPI is going to be 500. So being more competitive in the non-conference and playing a good balance of teams that you're going to be successful against and also get some quality wins. That's giving us the opportunity to be in the conversation right now. And I think what's really interesting this year, when you look at the KPI, is that you have more value in your road wins. So having such a competitive schedule on the road has given us a much better opportunity to be able to get more quality points on the road.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
You got it. Thanks for following. See you soon.